Okay, I think we should be live. Let me just double check that on my phone. Might take a minute. Still learning streaming software and stuff. Okay, yes. Believe we are good. Alright, hello. Welcome everyone to another one of these news roundup streams. Didn't do one last week because it was Thanksgiving and I tend to do these on Thursdays. But not much news happened anyway last week, so not too much was missed. But I do have a couple stories from 2 weeks ago that I thought was interesting. Just a couple, just to cover things. I'm also joined here by the largest pair of headphones in the world. I ordered these a little while ago and I did not realize how big they would be. They're a little bit ridiculous, but that's fine. We've got some news stories to go over with some Hogwarts Legacy soundtrack playing in the background. If anyone didn't check out my video on licensed games that went up recently, I would highly recommend you do that because I'm pretty proud of it and it didn't get that many views. So, one interesting thing that this happened, just yesterday. Microsoft wants Game Pass on PlayStation and Nintendo in every screen possible. If your fridge has a screen on it, they want Game Pass on it. You know your car GPS? They want Game Pass on that. You have a smartwatch? They want Game Pass on that. So, let's see here. I'll go over the article. Microsoft wants to bring Game Pass to PlayStation and Nintendo. Xbox CFO Tim Stewart said during a Wells Fargo TMT summit this week that the goal is to make first-party games and Game Pass available on every screen that can play games. And this includes rival consoles. Every screen that can play games. It's a bit of a change in strategy, not announcing anything broadly here, but our mission is to bring our first-party experiences and our subscription services to every screen that can play games, Stewart said. That means that smart TVs, that means mobile devices, that means we would have thought of competitors, that means what we would have thought of as competitors in the past, like PlayStation and Nintendo. Wow. Quite the big statement there. I'm getting a little warm. Let me just take my sweatshirt off. One moment. Okay. Thank you all for bearing with me. I'm not sure. My OBS video feed looks like it's kind of lagging behind. I'm not sure if that's if that is. Uh-oh, that's not what I wanted. Sorry, I'm trying to. I always forget. Okay, there we go. I have the chat pulled up now. Anyway. Oh god. Hold on, that messed up my. Let me make a quick change the webcam settings real fast. There we go. One moment, just because if anyone knows OBS and knows how to change exposure. Oh gosh, now I look dark. That's fine. We'll live with it. If anyone knows how to change exposure properly to have it set every time, let me know. Anyway, Game Pass on every screen possible, including PlayStation and Nintendo. First of all, Nintendo and PlayStation are never going to let that happen. And if they were to let that happen, it would require a pretty large fee from Microsoft paying that to PlayStation and Nintendo. I think a 30% cut is what each of them take. And that, like, Microsoft's not going to go for that. And Nintendo and PlayStation aren't going to go for any less. Game Pass for my PS1, that would be cool. You know, you get some classic games in there like Castlevania Symphony of the Night or the original Metal Gear Solid. That'd be fun. You know, Symphony of the Night is only available on PS4 or PlayStation, which is really weird. Like, it's so strange that has not come to the Switch. Anyway, Stewart says the Game Pass is a high-margin business for Microsoft, along with first-party games and advertising. These are all areas that Microsoft plans to expand into significantly in the time ahead. Stewart said that buying Activision Blizzard helps Microsoft get there faster than it might have been able to on its own. When he says Game Pass is a high margin business for Microsoft, where is he? This is at a Wells Fargo summit. So this is this is the CFO of Xbox. This is a business guy talking business with a bunch of high-level business people from Wells Fargo. This is not necessarily the internal meetings and the discussions that Microsoft is having within themselves. Because I don't believe that Game Pass is necessarily high margin. Like, the amount of games that they're putting on there, especially now with this Activision Blizzard deal, $70 billion worth of games going into Game Pass, unless they hike up the prices significantly, I really struggle to see how it is high margin. I mean, maybe, it's kind of a vague statement, like high margin, high margin could mean 10%. Like, who's to say what high is in high margin? So moving on though, for Game Pass on rival consoles, it makes sense that Microsoft would want to do this, but it would expand the reach of the subscription service to a much larger audience. Whether or not Sony or Nintendo would allow Game Pass on their consoles is not a question. For its part, Sony previously blocked EA Access, now called EA Play, saying it did not represent a good value for PlayStation users. I mean, yeah, Nintendo and PlayStation wouldn't want Game Pass on their stores, because then any game that's available on Game Pass that's also available in the store, it's probably not going to get many sales in the storefront if it's available on Game Pass, or as many. And if you're not taking the cut from Microsoft on the Game Pass side, and you can't take it from the game sale on that side, there's no reason for them to want to allow that. I think there's a couple like different antitrust lawsuits in the mix right now, which could, potentially change up what the situation is in terms of, there's a storefront on the PlayStation console. There's, PlayStation Store, Nintendo eShop. There's some antitrust lawsuits I've read about right now that are saying that, that is anti-competitive, which, I kind of see both sides of that. One thing, it's, certain companies' console, they shouldn't have to allow any sort of storefront out there for people, but also, it's a lot more restrictive than like a PC is with Steam, because with, you don't have to use Steam if you have a PC. You can use Epic Game Store or GOG or, any other number of launchers, or buy, in some cases for PC games, you can buy directly from the publisher's website. So it's just, it's interesting how this is turning out, because clearly Xbox is all in on Game Pass right now, but I just really have trouble seeing a path forward. Some people are saying like, oh, they're going to move on from consoles and going to focus only on Game Pass. Well, you have to have a platform for Game Pass to work on it, unless you're just talking entirely streaming, which, look, in 10 years, maybe we will be. But right now, you need some sort of hardware that's capable of running these games. So unless you're, selling people an Xbox, selling people a PC, like, PC Game Pass is a thing. I think it's pretty likely, and I think it would be the smart move for Microsoft to come out with a Steam Deck equivalent sometime in the near future. Something that runs a modified version of Windows, could run Game Pass and any other games straight out of the box. They could bundle it with like 6 months to a year Game Pass to get people hooked in. And I think they could probably be more successful, honestly, than they would be with the Xbox Series X, because it sounds like things aren't going super well for them there. And, as we've seen, like people are playing Starfield on their Steam Decks. It's not running at the highest resolution or highest frame rate, but they're getting it to work. So, pump a little bit more juice into it. Maybe in like 3 years we could see something that's the equivalent of, even more powerful than an Xbox Series S in a handheld form factor. And Microsoft really should get in on that, because if they don't do it soon, they're kind of going to be left behind by Steam Deck and Asus ROG Ally and the Lenovo one and the Switch when the new more powerful Switch comes out. So, this story doesn't mean all too much in the grand scheme of things, but it's just interesting to see where Microsoft's trajectory is going over the next few years. Moving on, here is look at that. You probably guess what this story is. Half-Life November. So original Half-Life came out November 19th, 1998, which means it was just the 25th anniversary of the Half-Life series and the Half-Life game, original Half-Life game. And so Valve put together this thing. They put together a documentary, which I haven't seen, but I definitely am interested in checking that out. Because I always like a game documentary that's coming from the source where, they actually have, like, they can actually interview people. It's not just someone, like, trying to figure out information about a game with no access to any of the material about it. So, yeah, they're got this, I think it's like an hour long, which is, I won't play it right now. But yeah, just about an hour long. No, stop it. Stop. Oh god. Okay. Which is about as long as the Boogie documentary, and this is definitely worth watching over that. So yeah, it's interesting. It kind of goes through, the 25th anniversary update. I think it was free on Steam the other day, which Half-Life and Half-Life 2 go free on Steam like all the time. So, if you've been using Steam for any reasonable amount of time, you probably already have Half-Life or in any number of Half-Life games. And I will say, I first played the first Half-Life probably about 10 years ago, like 2012, 2013 range. And, I think, it's not the most modern game, obviously, but it still holds up pretty nicely, I think. It's got, an old school charm to it. And it's crazy to think, this is, 1998. Like, this was N64 generation. This is an N64 generation game, essentially. And it's just so far above something like Mario 64, which, Mario 64 came out 2 years before Half-Life. Like, it's crazy, Mario 64, of course, set the blueprint for 3D games, but then Half-Life really took that and iterated on it. One cool thing is, this Half-Life Uplink released 4 new multiplayer laps. Like, it's pretty funny, to see, new content coming out for a 25-year-old game. Like, it's always cool when things like that happen. Like, it kind of reminds me of when Mario Maker was coming out, and they created certain assets for, like, the first Mario game style that, for like characters or enemies that weren't in that game, so they had to sort of like match it to the style of the original Super Mario Brothers game, and it was really cool to see how they did that. So this is kind of a similar thing here. So 4 new maps, updated graphic settings. Look, you can play with widescreen. I don't know if any of this is super new, but because you could certainly play with widescreen before, but it makes it much more easy to get into. One thing, I guess, Steam Deck support. I did not know that Half-Life was not verified on the Steam Deck prior to this, but it comes right at the same time as the Steam Deck OLED, which is pretty cool. Well, let me close. Yes. I'm just running this all off of my small little laptop, and so not everything is running very smoothly, but I do what I can. But yeah, Half-Life on the Steam Deck finally. UI scaling support for higher resolutions. This is something good because with a lot of these remasters or just like upscales, you get a lot of like the the JPEG UI elements don't get upscaled in the same way that the environments do, and so they can end up looking like either really stretched or like really tiny. Looking pretty awful, so it's good that they took extra care for that. Some restored content. The classic Valve logo with its iconic music. Ivan the Space Biker. I don't know, like, I've never played Half-Life multiplayer before. I've played Counter-Strike, of course, which is essentially Half-Life multiplayer, but It's cool that Valve is doing something like this. So I give them kudos for that. Bug fixes. Nostalgia, improved physics for throwing grenades. That's good. So yeah, I would recommend playing Half-Life if you never have before. You know, it's definitely a piece of video game history. It's, you know, I would say one of the most important games of all time. Definitely worth, you know, just checking out and trying out for a bit. Even if you don't play the whole thing, it's just, you know, it's definitely got one of the best intros, I think, to a game. Hello, Wiz. It's got one of the best intros to a game, I think. Especially for that time. So absolutely worth playing, I would say. Here in not so good news. Who saw this coming? No one could have ever seen this coming. Knights of the Old Republic remake is apparently not going to come out. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Our good friend Jeff Grubb says, I want to clear this up. The game is not being worked on right now. Just full stop. The game is not being worked on in any way at any studio. Oh, what a shame. Originally announced back in 2021. 2021. God, 2 years of, you know, nothing happening. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake has been through development turmoil from the start. It was first in development by Aspire Media before Embrace Group shipped the game over to Saber Interactive in August 2022. Honestly, like, whenever you hear about a game shifting a development, like changing from one studio to another, that is essentially a death sentence for a game. Like, the only one I can think of that's, you know, seems to be successful with that would be Metroid Prime 4. But that hasn't come out yet. So, you know, like, there's still plenty of time for Metroid Prime 4 to be canceled. Not that I'm wishing for that to happen, but I'm just saying it's possible. Most of the time when you hear, oh, we start off with a new studio, but everything's going to be fine. It's never fine. It's really never fine. During a show, Grubb also mentioned that the game may have been moved away from Saber Interactive as well. Since the announcement moving away from Aspire Media, nothing has been said by anyone involved in the state of the game. The only thing that's been happening recently is the scrubbing of social media and YouTube by Sony removing mentions of the game. That obviously doesn't look good. Even during quarterly earnings reports, Embrace Group failed to confirm the game was still making progress. I notice that anything I say to this becomes a headline, so that's my only comment, said Lars Wingforce. You know, Embracer Group has had quite a few issues over the past few months, you know, as a whole. There have been a lot of layoffs across the board there. They shut down Volition, you know, tons and tons of layoffs in Embracer Group. There's something with, like, the Saudis were going to invest like a couple $2 billion and they pulled out at the last minute, and so they basically had no money. So it's, you know, it's not, this isn't happening anytime soon. And you know, anytime a game is announced like this remake was, with, you know, just like, you know, a title and like a tiny cinematic, like, I think there was like one character turning around. I don't know. I've never played KOTOR. People say it's good. It looks fine. I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of burned out on Star Wars for the foreseeable future, I think. So I don't know. I probably would have checked out the remake if it was good, but it's never happening now. So that's a bit of a shame. What do we have next? Okay. Hey, speaking of failure, that's always fun to talk about different flops. Report 83% of mobile games fail in the first 3 years after launch. And 43% of games are dropped during development. I gotta say that's not a surprise. With just by the sheer number of mobile games that come out, like, I don't know if you can really expect that many to hit. And while they might have lower development budget than a AAA game would, you still have to make your money back. So, according to the report, 76% of launch games reach peak revenue in the first year, but only 4% reaches peak during the second year. Oof, man. Honestly, I wouldn't, when you have a headline like this, 83% of games fail after 3 years, it sounds bad because it is. But honestly, probably I would say around 80% of new businesses, in any market, probably fail within 3 years. I think I've definitely heard that something like 80% of restaurants fail after the first year, which is not entirely surprising because it's very difficult to run a restaurant, and clearly it's very difficult to make a mobile game that is able to be profitable in a way to keep it going. So, and especially right now, you see a lot of these always online games that are either getting canceled or shutting down after less than a year. And the thing is, Candy Crush has been around for a billion years. What's it called? Fortnite has been around for a good few years now. There's kind of only so many people that are gonna invest their time into a mobile game or into an ongoing game like these are. The market is big, yes, but it's not infinite. So you can only get so much out of it, and anyone who's starting up development on an always online game saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna take Fortnite down," yeah, good luck. Fortnite is what it is because they kept adding tons of new content every few weeks. And it takes a huge budget to do that. And, they had the budget from Epic Games that was able to do that for them. Help them out with that. But if you're an independent studio or a smaller studio that doesn't have the Unreal Engine, the monthly fees from the Unreal Engine supporting you, then, good luck with that. So, that's a bit of a shame. Okay, here was one. This was from a couple days ago. Bethesda is responding to negative Starfield reviews on Steam. This guy Juicehead, I guess, found that out, and I've got screenshots here, and it is weird. I've never heard of a developer really doing this before. They're writing back to these negative reviews, and Starfield, I think, has mixed reviews on Steam. So they're saying things like, while there may be loading screens between fast traveling, just consider the amount of data for the expansive gameplay that is procedurally generated to load flawlessly in under 3 seconds. We believe that shortcoming will not hinder our players from getting lost in the world we created. It's such a PR statement, especially with the never stop exploring there at the bottom. What the question is, all right, let's say everything, even if these reviews that users are leaving are, based on falsehoods, which I'm not saying they are, but even if they were, what's the point of responding like this? Clearly the person's already played the game. They don't like your game. They're not going to change their mind based on what you say to them. I guess this is so if someone is considering buying the game and they think, okay, I'm gonna look through user reviews, they'll see this, but it's weird. And it's weird for a game that is apparently selling as well as Starfield has, which I don't know if numbers on that are really out. I think I saw some Europe numbers, but might not be exactly what Microsoft needed here. Why is that gonna be why is this gonna be helpful in getting more players? Check out another one. Some of these also I don't like. Oh shoot. You hear this said a lot these days, and I think a lot of the time it's not true, but these replies very much reek of a chat GPT thing. It's like, like if you wrote into ChatGPT right now, be a developer who responds, a Starfield developer who responds to a negative review on Steam, address these points, like I'm sure it would turn out something very, very similar. Like, Starfield is an RPG with hundreds of hours of quests to complete and characters to meet. Like, I don't know, it's very, it feels very inauthentic the way they're writing here. So I just, I don't understand the point of what they're trying to do here with that. Let me just adjust my filter a bit. Okay. That's better. I don't know. That's just strange. I got another one here from Twitter. Oh yes. This happened. This was a little bit of older news here. Game Maker, the engine, will be free for non-commercial use on all platforms excluding console. To further meet your needs, we're introducing a one-time license replacing our current subscriptions. Look, anytime you can just buy something instead of subscribing to it, I have to applaud that. I'm not a fan of subscription services whatsoever. I would much rather, I'd rather just pay once and buy something and not have to pay it again versus paying monthly for something, which seems to be the way the majority of things are going now, which is really frustrating. Game Maker, I'm not an engine guy, I'm not a gaming engine guy, but from what I understand, Game Maker is a pretty formidable tool that a smaller time developer might want to use to maybe make their first game or make a small scale game. I believe Pizza Tower runs off Game Maker, and I'm sure. Oh god, I'm just seeing here now that Switch 2 is trending. I'm not to get off topic, but I think I'm just going to ignore all Switch 2 news until it's announced. It's just like, I went through it with the Switch Pro every fucking day. Rumors say the Switch Pro is coming. Oh, there's Nintendo bought a bunch of different LCD screens. Means the Switch Pro. And it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. And now it's the same thing's happening with the Switch 2. So I'm sick of it. Yeah, I believe, I believe Unity and Unreal Engine do have free versions, non-commercial, for non-commercial use. So I guess Game Maker is just joining them in that regard. So yeah, it's always good to have more people have more access to be able to make a game if that's something that they desire. I think, Game Maker gets a bit of flack just because, there's a lot of low-effort games that come out with Game Maker, on Steam and stuff. But, it's... You can make the same... people say the same thing about every engine. They say, oh, this looks like an Unreal Engine, the Unreal Engine tech demo. Or, people shit on Unity all the time. Because, a bunch of, meme games are made with Unity. So, at the end of the day, it's not the engine that matters so much. It's how you use it. So this is, actually some good news here. What do I have here? Okay. I've got a bit of Game Awards news coming in now. Game Awards are next Thursday, I believe. I'm just realizing it's next Thursday, which is normally when I do these streams, so I don't know what time it starts. Maybe I do a quick one before. But I probably... I'm not going to be streaming the Game Awards, God no, because it's 4 hours long. I do not want to have to deal with that and sit and watch Jeff Keighley talk about who's Canadian for 3 hours. But anyway, speaking of Jeff, Game Awards host and producer Jeff Keighley that he's considered adding other awards. Oh shit, my light. Adding other awards to the show, including Best Remake and Best Supporting Actor. Best Supporting Actor, they should definitely have. I kind of, think about it. I don't understand why they don't. But Best Remake, they really need to have Best Remake. And his reasoning, I read this article before. His reasoning for not having a Best Remake category is such bullshit. Um, During recent Twitch Q&A, Keeley asked if there was any plans for new award categories at the Game Awards. There are no new categories this year, but the idea of adding new categories is regularly discussed. Nothing new this year, he said. I've seen people online saying, why don't you have a best DLC category? Which is kind of like the ongoing category. It's been live service games, but this year Cyberpunk 2077 has been nominated. People ask why it's nominated. Well, because they improved the base game in a big way with version 2.0 and Phantom Liberty. So that's sort of in that category. That makes somewhat sense, I guess. Frankly, I think there's enough DLC that comes out every year that can support a best DLC category, or they call it like best expansion or something that sounds a little bit more professional than best DLC. Because I did see some people saying, like, with online, like, best online category or best ongoing game. That does make you think, like, it's a game that is, like, built from the ground up to be evolving. Cyberpunk 2077 was not built from the ground up to be evolving. It released broken and awful, and they had to update it to make it any good. I played Cyberpunk back when for the first time back when the next gen patch came out like a year ago. I didn't really care for it then, and I probably will not be revisiting it. But anyway, another thing people always ask is, why don't we have a best remake or remaster category? We talked about it. I think the question is, are there 5 amazing remakes every year? Some years there were some amazing ones this year. Obviously Resident Evil 4 is nominated for Game of the Year. Dead Space, a bunch of other games came out this year. But the question is also then, would those remakes not be eligible for the Game of the Year? So yeah, nothing new this year category-wise, but it's definitely something that we talk about every year and try to evaluate the best way to go about that. Okay. This reason is, like, makes zero sense, because we already have a bunch of categories that are clearly scraping the bottom of the barrel for releases every single year. Like best fighting game is one, and I understand the need to have a best fighting game category, because a fighting game is never going to win Game of the Year. Like, if Smash Brothers couldn't win Game of the Year, no fighting game is going to. So, but, and that's how things like Jump Force end up, or like, random indie fighting games that hardly anyone plays, but, you want to have something there. And, I think expanding it, maybe not strictly a remake thing, because that kind of pigeonholes you, but if it was to be a remake / remaster category, like, there's absolutely enough material to work with there that could make for a compelling category. Like this year, like you mentioned, Resident Evil 4, Dead Space, Metroid Prime Remastered is fantastic. Right here, there's a picture of Advance Wars. That's probably deserving of a nomination. I'm sure there's a million more that I'm not thinking of at the moment. Mario RPG, I've been playing. That just came out. That would be worth nominating here. Although that may have missed the cutoff, but it could be in there next year if that's something they would add. So and especially when you have like the best esports coach, best esports event, like, who cares? Like, no, literally 0 people are watching the Game Awards to learn who the best esports coach is. But a remake category would make a lot of sense. Let's see what else he has to say. He was asked if a best supporting actor was something that could be added to the show, given the increased number of impressive performances made possible by improving capture technology. So we talked about lots of great performances. On the other side, we have some people who say you guys focus a bit too much on the narrative aspects of the games. You're too much like the Oscars. You should be focusing on gameplay-driven things. Proud of their acting award has always been gender neutral. Hey, that makes sense. I think best supporting actor, best main actor, best supporting actor. Hey, that makes plenty of sense there. Like, one thing was one of the nominations for best actor or best performance was the Asterian actor for Baldur's Gate 3. But, Baldur's Gate 3 has any number of actors who would be worthy of that nomination. Same for a lot of other games this year. So to only have like one person be the one actor who gets the award, especially with voice and performance capture being like, in like every game has performance except for Pokemon. But that'll be never nominated anyway. So I don't know. I really don't understand his reasoning for not the having the best remake thing. Like it seems so clear to me. So I don't know why they wouldn't want that. Look, Jeff, if you make the award show longer, you can sell more ads during it. Added 50 more categories. I'm surprised he doesn't. I think I've got some... Okay, I've got a bit more Game Awards news. Game Awards security will be tightened to prevent another stage invasion. Incidents have happened at 2 of Keighley's major events. Yeah, there was this guy. Like, obviously there was the Bill Clinton kid at the Game Awards last year, but then this guy at, like, Gamescom, just, like, he wasn't, like... I kind of have some respect for the Bill Clinton kid, because he, like, was, like, a little bit coy about it. Walking up with the Elden Ring guys, like, and he was like trying to blend in. This guy just ran up on the stage and started yelling into the microphone, like, like what is wrong with people? I mean, hey, I say, if you want to run up on a stage at an award show and scream something in a microphone, I empower you to do it, because a lot of these things get boring sometimes, and I can spice things up. So I welcome that. So I guess this is the same Q&A stream on Twitch. He said he didn't want to go into specifics. Don't want to talk about that stuff too publicly because of security. We definitely have plans. We're just trying to do all we can to keep me safe, but also everyone watching the show, the audience, people who are participating in the show, and everything. It's certainly something we're thinking about. We appreciate all the concern. God, look, it is embarrassing that this keeps happening at his events. One thing is, Gamescom is not Jeff Keighley's event. He doesn't run it all. They just hire him to host it. So I don't think he has that much control over the security there. That's kind of, whatever happens there happens. And it doesn't really come down to him. But the Game Awards is absolutely his event. And the fact that someone can walk up on stage with the group of developers that win Game of the Year and then can say something into the microphone when they're all done talking is very strange. I kind of don't understand why they even allow like public tickets to it. Like, I guess it might be a cool thing to see if you're in LA and you want to go see a big 5-hour long show about video games. But it'd make more sense to me to just be like an industry and journalism event, not something that you can just buy tickets for, because then, if you make it to the public will show up, and the public has problems sometimes. Let me just see. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Oh God, Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. Look, that was one of the legendary moments from any Game Awards show. Like, you have to admit that. All right, let's see what else. It's next week. Okay, this is it's in Japanese, but okay, here we go. This is from the Like a Dragon studio. New stage of Like a Dragon 8 is Honolulu City, Hawaii. Vast new stage is said to be more than 3 times the size of... Oh God, I'm not going to be able to say that. Isezaki Ijincho. So what kind of areas are there and what kind of entries are waiting for them? Yeah, I saw this headline. This came up... When was this? It was a couple days ago. Yeah, the 24th. It's... you hear headlines about certain games sometimes that are, say, like, oh, this one is 3 times bigger than the previous map. I'm like, I don't... A lot of times it's not about, like, the size of something, it's about the density. I haven't played Yakuza 5, and it's like, you know, taking up half my life because that game literally never ends. Like, it just, you know, as soon as you think you're like getting someone in the story, it starts over with a new character, and you have to like learn about their backstory and what they are going through and blah blah blah. And so, you know, games don't necessarily like longer. A game being longer does not necessarily mean it's going to be better. And a lot of the times, games overstay their welcome. You know, like what was I thinking of earlier? Last of Us 2. You know, I like that game for the most part. I like it, I think, a lot more than other people do. But that game overstays its welcome dramatically. And you know, you want players to have a much tighter experience because the vast majority of players don't finish games anyway. So, you know, you can look at the Steam achievements for any game, and most players don't make it past the first third. It's like, I don't think games need to be so giant, so long, and especially like, you know, a headline like this, like it's 3 times the size of the previous city. Like I said, I'm playing Yakuza 5. I haven't gotten to Yakuza 7 yet, but you know, if it's like, you don't want a very large space with, you know, if it's got the same amount of content, like there's no point to just spreading it out and making you waste time walking to each thing. Or if this Yakuza game is like all the other Yakuza games, you'll get bombarded by 5 street fights when you go to try to go 3 feet in the game, and it's annoying to have to deal with stuff like that. So it's a shame that, you know, there's such a focus on like bigger when it should be better. There was a similar news story about this game last time I did this show. It said basically like, it's, you know, Like a Dragon 8 is so super long. The developer was even saying like, if you try to like beat it fast, like you're gonna like get sick of it. I'm like, why would you want that? Why would you want that as a developer? Why would you want that as a player? Like, especially like if you're gonna, you know, make that much content, spread it out across multiple games. Maybe you make more money. Players will be happier. So it's annoying to keep seeing these types of things. And like I said, I like the Yakuza games overall, but some of them are too long. A lot of games are too long. Here we go. Here's some other interesting news. Oh Jesus Christ. Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out March 22nd, 2024. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. What? No Stadia version? Oh my god. This is, you know, pretty cool. I mean, we've known about Dragon's Dogma 2 for a while, but it's, you know, coming out before too long. A lot of people have been anticipating this game heavily for a very, very long time. A lot of people have been wanting this game for a super long time. So it's great to see it has a release date. It seems to be in good hands. I played the first one a bit. I didn't give it a fair shot. I felt like it just didn't really click with me. But I'm gonna give the first one another shot before this comes out, I think, because from what, you know, I hear, by all accounts, the first one's a very good game. It sounds like a game I would enjoy, so I'm gonna give it another try and try to get through it before this comes out, because it'll be interesting. Like, you know, it's definitely an ambitious game, the first one, and it'll be interesting to see how technology is able to advance the series. Because when did the first one come out? Like 2011, maybe, or maybe 2012. So it's pretty amazing that this is actually happening. And the first one, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, is on the Switch too. That's what I have it on. You know, any game I can get on the Switch that like is not super compromised compared to like a PS4 version or PS5 version, I'm always going to go for it on the Switch. That portability factor. So, you know, if anyone is wanting perhaps a good action adventure game, that could definitely be one to be on the lookout for. And I think you can get it pretty cheaply too. I definitely got it on sale, like, and that was years ago, so I'm sure you probably get it for like around $20 now. Speaking of Dragon's Dogma, you know, with every good news story, there are always, you know, there's two sides to every coin. And this one is Dragon's Dogma 2 marks Capcom's first $70 base game. This shouldn't be that much of a surprise. There hasn't been a new Monster Hunter game out since the $70 thing became the standard price point. So, you know, Dragon's Dogma 2 will be the one. That marks the first time that Capcom will sell the base game of a new game for that higher price point. This year's Resident Evil 4 remake, was sold for $10 less, while a remake, it was substantially different. Street Fighter 6 was also sold for less, as was Dino Hunter Exo Primal. Capcom has been one of the few publishers not to embrace the $70 price point up until now, but the move comes as no surprise. Yep. You know, look, that's the new price. That's the price the games are now. Big games, they're $70. Like that's the world we live in now. You know, inflation is affecting everything. And, you know, they were $60 since, what, the beginning of the 360 generation? So, it's can't be a surprise that this is it. You know, we had even Tears of the Kingdom, $70. When the Switch 2 launches, every game there is going to be $70. You know, what was it? Starfield was $70. So, this is the world we live in now. You might as well get used to it. Like, I'm wondering at what point will a game come out that's $70 and we don't get articles like this. It's like, you know, at some point you got to just accept that this is reality. We got one more. One more Game Awards thing as we go into that next week. Our good friend Jeff Keighley weighing in on the debate over Dave the Diver qualifying for Best Indie Game. It's been nominated at the Game Awards despite being funded by a $1 billion publisher. Let's see. God, Keighley was just spilling all on this Q&A session on Twitch. He said, "Look, it's a great question. Independent can mean different things to different people, and it's sort of a broad term. No, independent means independent. Like, you want to talk about the definition of an indie game being, you know, fluid. That's fine, because an indie game is, you know, that's a made up term by the industry as a way of like classifying these smaller games from independent studios that started up, you know, around the like early 360 era. You know, there's still a relatively new phenomenon, frankly. So like the definition of that is kind of, you know, in flux. The definition of the word independent, you can look it up in the dictionary, and that's what it says. Independent is independent. You can't say it's a broad term. And the name of the game, like this would not be a problem. This whole Dave the Diver thing would not be a problem if the category of the Game Awards was Best Indie Game. But it's not that. It's not Best Indie Game. It's Best Independent Game. So what you run into there is, you know, and even like if I remember right, the description on the Game Awards website, it says like the best, you know, game made outside of the traditional publisher system. Like Dave the Diver, you know, the studio behind Dave the Diver is not independent, and it was not made outside of the traditional publisher system. Like, you know, and he goes on to say here, you can argue, does independent mean the budget of the game? Does independent mean where the source of financing was? Does it mean the team size? Or is it a kind of independent spirit of the game, meaning a smaller game that's sort of different? Like, you can't put the definition of what the category is on the website and then be like, oh, it kind of means all these different things. Like, no, you defined it. you can't come back in and say later on, well, it could be anything. Like, no. Because in that case, like, what's the point of any of these categories? Like, let's say best fighting game. You fight in Baldur's Gate 3. Is it a fighting game? Like, come on, Keeley. Like, Jesus Christ. No, and like, sure, if you like the budget, the financing, team size, like those are all things that a lot of indie games have in common. But, you know, you're not weighing that out when you define what the category is. You're saying that later on. I don't know. It's just, I think that, you know, it kind of makes the Game Awards look a little bit sloppy to have it nominated, to be honest. Like that they're not doing their due diligence and, like, you know, properly weeding out what should go into what category. And this is Jeff, you know, he's not going to get up here and say like, oh, yeah, you're right, it shouldn't be in there. But like, no, there's got to be some sort of process for, you know, if what is not an independent game gets nominated for the best independent game category, then it should be, you know, disqualified somehow, right? Like, how, like, you know, he when this first happened, I think he said, like, you know, it's ultimately up to the Game Awards jury to pick nominees. Yeah, here goes. I think everyone has their own opinion about this, and we really defer to our jury of 120 global media outlets who vote on these awards to make that determination of is something independent or not. Like, that's just, you know, the buck stops with him ultimately. And so, you know, it's the responsibility of someone at the Game Awards to, like, get the list of the nominees. Hey, Dave the Diver's on here. This isn't independent. This game does not fit into the definition that we established of what an independent game is. Therefore, it can't be nominated, and we, you know, add in the other game. Like, Pizza Tower was not nominated, but Dave the Diver was. Look, and like, I haven't played Dave the Diver, but from what I've heard, by all accounts, it's a very good game. But doesn't make it an independent game. You know, he goes on to say, you know, in other industries, sometimes there are things. I think in the film industry, the budget can't be above this amount of dollars. It's not independent, so I don't know. Like, shouldn't you research that kind of stuff, Jeff? And look, defining the rules by budget is going to get messy because, first of all, there's ways of, like, hiding things. You know, I would not be surprised if a certain larger publisher, you know, moved the money around in some way that'd be like, on paper, the game budget was under like $20 million or something, but it ended up actually being significantly more. But they did that just to qualify for the Game Awards. Like, something like that's not infeasible. So there's going to be challenges to any system you set up. But the way they have it set up now is nothing. Like, you got to at least try to, like, make it somewhat credible. He says, some people have said Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, that's an independent game. Technically, yes. Larian is an independent studio. They self-publish their game. I talked about this in the last stream I did. You know, like, if you're going to go by the definition of what an independent game is, meaning it's, you know, self-published, then, like, Tears of the Kingdom is a self-published game. Every first-party game that Sony and Microsoft put out is technically a self-published game, because they're developing it and they're publishing it. So, like, can you call those indie games? 99% of people would say no. And something like Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, like, you know, by the definition that the Game Awards has set, it's an indie game. But obviously the budget is gargantuan compared to a lot of the stuff there. So you got to draw the line somewhere. I'm not saying it's easy to define what an indie game is. But if you define what an indie game is, you have to abide by the definition that you set. It's just reeks of, like, you know, trying to pass the blame off on someone else when he says, oh, 120 global media outlets made the determination of is something independent or not. Like, no, you got to sit down and say, no, this is not independent. there was I'm happy they have this tweet here because I saw this a few days before. This guy Greg Miller, which I forget what he's from, but he's from some pretty established YouTube thing or something. He says, so if Naughty Dog, or he was replying to this guy Aaron, I understand both sides of the argument, but I do feel the term best indie game is more of a look and feel these days than a semantic over a definition. Though, the term indie, sure, indie can be up for debate. Independent, no, that cannot. And then Greg Miller here makes I think, a really, really good point. So Naughty Dog said it had a pen-person team to make a pixel art 2D side-scroller. We'd put them in this category. I think you got to change the name of the category if that's the case. Absolutely. I fully agree with Greg there. Like, Nintendo puts out any number of small games. Like, they put out, let's say, like, there's, like, every year there's, like, a million, like, tiny Kirby games that come out, like Kirby Fighters. Like, what was it? There was, like, Kirby's, like, Dream Cafe, I think, came out recently. That was one. And there are, like, perfect. All right, here's the perfect example of this. If you remember early days of the pandemic, Nintendo released a game called Jump Rope Challenge. And it was basically the most simple game you could think of. It was you hold the Joy-Cons like this at your side, and you like basically pretend like you're jumping rope with them. And it was made by like a couple developers, just a couple developers, when working from home. I think basically they were just figuring out like if they could make like anything from home. And so they're like, all right, let's make like the tiniest game possible. Let's make the game, let's put it out, and just see if we can do this as an experiment. So like, obviously a game that simple isn't going to get nominated for anything, but like, let's say it was a little bit more fleshed out, but it still was a very small team. It was still Nintendo. Like by the Game Awards definition, that could be nominated for Best Independent Game, even if it comes from Nintendo. So it's, I don't know. The whole thing is just so messy. Like, if you're gonna come up with a definition, you have to stick with it. Is my only point here. And if you want to just like take the easy way out, and honestly maybe the best way out, change it to Best Indie Game. Have the description be like, best unconventional game. That like best creative, like unconventional game made by a small team or something. Like, not saying best game outside the traditional publisher system, because that's very easy to qualify. What creative is, what a small team is. That's much more up for debate. So it's so ridiculous. All right, a few more things to go through here. One thing here, my friend Gabe Newell ordered to make in-person deposition for Valve versus Wolfire Games lawsuit. He additionally wanted to be on a video call due to health concerns related to COVID. Gabe, I'm sorry to tell you, COVID's over, and you have enough money to, have the best doctor in the world look after you if you get it. The reason, like, obviously that is not, that alone is not a major story in itself, but I was not aware of this antitrust lawsuit prior to seeing this story, so I thought it was interesting enough to throw in here. But essentially, it is for anti-competitive practices on Steam. Wolfire Games. The filing centered around the 30% cut the platform holder takes, with the developer arguing that Valve used dominance to take an extraordinarily high cut from nearly every sale that passed through its store, and he's used its position to exploit publishers and consumers. It was initially dismissed in November 2021. And I guess they're filing it again. So, yeah, it filed another complaint addressing the highlighted issues. I guess it didn't contain sufficient facts. Look, 30% is a big chunk of the money, especially for a smaller game, a smaller developer who might be struggling with anything. but it really is the same across all platforms. You know, it's 30%, I believe, on Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo stores. So I don't really see this going over there. And like, especially, you know, to file this sort of lawsuit against Steam, like Steam is not the only platform you can buy games on PC. Like I said, there's Epic, there's GOG, there's, you know, straight from publishers' websites some of the time. So I don't know if that's really a fight worth picking. There was even, you know, what was it? The Apple versus Epic, Apple, sorry, Epic Games versus Apple lawsuit that was happening like last year, and I think that, you know, got shut down. Basically, Epic Games wanting Fortnite to be able to be on the store without Apple taking a cut from like the V-Bucks and microtransactions and stuff there, and that didn't really go anywhere. And if they can't win, if Epic Games can't win a lawsuit, I don't think Wolfire Games is going to win this lawsuit, especially when there's other storefronts available on PC. So not really gonna go anywhere there. All right, here's an interesting one. In time for the holidays, U.S. kids want game subscriptions and virtual currency more than games this Christmas. Study showed only 22% of U.S. children surveyed want physical games for the holidays. A report by the Entertainment Software Association found that 72% of children in the U.S. want games-related products for Christmas, but only 22% have asked for physical games. Subscriptions are the most popular gift idea at 39%, followed by consoles, game accessories, and in-game currency. Man, it's, you know, the headline I think makes this out to be a bit worse than it is. We said only 22% of kids wanted games, but you know, the difference isn't, you know, 22% versus 78%. The difference is 22% versus like 39%, or the in-game currency 29%. Because when you think about it, if you're a kid with no console, like obviously you're not going to ask for games without a console. Like, you know, so yeah, what are you going to say? You want an Xbox or you want, you know, a Starfield? If you have a game with no console to play it on, you know, don't really have much of anything there. It's not a big surprise, I think, to see in-game currency being so high, because, you know, absolutely kids want V-Bucks. I think there's like something within Minecraft it's like that. Mentioning Roblox, yeah. I remember my ex-girlfriend would always have her cousin texting her to ask to buy him Robux. You know, game-related, but, you know, look here. The good news is game-related products came out on top, beating other gift ideas such as money and gift cards, or technology such as smartphones and smartwatches. Honestly, that, I gotta say, is the biggest surprise of this to me. And it's actually really good news that it's, you know, game-related products beating technology like smartphones and smartwatches. That's awesome. I mean, maybe a lot of these kids already have phones. That could be it. But there's always, you know, the newer iPhone that, it's, you know, a 5-year-old needs. Every 5-year-old needs the latest iPhone, clearly. And the books were the lowest on the gift list at 26%. I wonder if they asked, you know, that's not a surprise. I wonder if they asked kids about clothing on there, because I wouldn't be surprised if that was lower than books. One interesting thing, though, let's see. They said, where in this article, they said subscription services was over physical games, which I can totally see a kid asking for. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, that was 39%. I can totally see a kid asking for Game Pass, because any kid kind of in the know is going to be like, well, I could get my parents to get me 1 or 2 games maybe, or if I can get them to get me Game Pass, which they'll probably forget that they're paying for, then I can have all these games. So that's not a surprise. But Game Pass has to be like probably the biggest subscription one that they have, that people are asking for, because I don't really know of many others besides that. Like there's like the EA Play, and I think there's like a Ubisoft one, or isn't there? There's like the Nvidia bundle, I think, which literally no kid is asking for that. So that's interesting stuff. But it's good to see the games are still popular among kids. I see kids playing Switches all the time. Like when I was getting my haircut the other day, there was a kid playing a Switch. I wanted to ask him what he was playing, but I feel like that would be creepy. Here we go. Another news we have here. Sega says Sonic Superstars had a weaker start than anticipated, but it's hopeful it'll eventually sell on the same level as Sonic Frontiers. I know in the chat, let me know if the music is too loud. I try to get it pretty low, but still like hearable. It's because I think it's nice to have some background music with something like this. So anyway, Sega stated that Sonic Superstars didn't sell as well as it hoped during its release period. During a financial sales briefing held this month, Sega Sammy Holdings president Satomi said the game had a weaker start than Sega planned, but hoped things would eventually pick up. It was released in October, which is a slightly weaker start than we had anticipated. But in reality, when the Sonic IP sells the most is mainly November to December, and more than 90% of this title's marketing will be spent in the Thanksgiving holiday season from November onwards. That's not a giant surprise there. I think, the majority of the games sell most in the in the lead up to Christmas. But I'm a Sonic fan. I hope this game does well enough. I will admit I haven't bought it, so maybe I'm part of the problem here. I definitely think a lot of the problems they might be running into with sales for Sonic Superstars is they're released like 3 days before Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which it's not even comparable in terms of the quality, in terms of the marketability of Sonic versus Mario. Like Mario is so many levels above Sonic. Like I don't know why they would not either push the release date back or push it forward. Because it looks like a solid game from what I've seen, but it does not look nearly as good or creative or as fun as Mario. So that's I don't know why they did that, because there's also, I didn't add it here, but there was this news story from a few weeks ago of like the Sega CEO or someone saying that they wanted Sonic to be as big as Mario, which yeah, okay. Look, there's a lot of things I want in life that aren't going to happen. He said the game had been released during a busy period and is hopeful it would continue to sell because of the generally positive reception from critics and players. I'm planning to continue our marketing efforts to sell on the same level as Sonic Frontiers. I mean, honestly, I hope that Sonic Frontiers sells better than Sonic Superstars did, because I am more of a fan of the 3D Sonic games than the 2D games. I don't get why they never made a sequel to Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania was by far the best 2D Sonic game, and they just never followed up with it. Sonic and Mario at the Olympics 2024. I played Sonic and Mario at the Olympics 2020. It was the Olympics that didn't happen in 2020. But the game still came out. So it came out a year prior to the Olympics actually happening, which is like kind of funny. So I'm happy I have that game for like the history aspect of it. But the game itself is not very good, except there's a very good skateboarding minigame in there. But other than that, it's not great. Has a Metacritic score of 76. Look, Mario Wonder is what, like a 92. So almost 20 points below Mario. Like, I'm sure it'll do decent around the holiday, because it's easy. Any parent looking to buy a game for their kid, they see Sonic on the front, like, oh, cool, like it's a Sonic game, like that's easy. But And also it's multi-platform too, which is good. So it'll be able to tap into PS4 and Xbox sales. I don't know. Now look, maybe Microsoft will buy Sega, and then they won't have to worry about this. It'll just all be on Game Pass. Here's news. This is from today. This is like somewhat more surprising thing, I think. Baldur's Gate 3 patch 5 adds new playable epilogue with over 3,500 lines of extra dialogue and much more. This is very surprising. Fixes slowdown issues caused by patch 4. Adds a brand new epilogue, providing closure to each player's journey and even new game modes. New playable epilogue gameplay, accessible to all players loaded in the game prior to the final fight, takes place before the credits. Players find themselves in camp 6 months after the event of Baldur's Gate 3's story, where they meet new friends and old, taking all the time they need to say their final goodbyes to the party. And I guess Larian called it a final goodbye as well to the game. I mean, that's something that, like, any other company or the majority of companies would add in for, $15 DLC, but Larian just added it here as a patch, which is cool. I loved Baldur's Gate 3. I enjoyed it a ton. I probably won't be revisiting it to do this epilogue because I don't really want to do the final fight again. I just don't feel like it, but it's very cool that there's this. And the way the game wrapped up, like, it did kind of feel, at least for me, I know every ending is different, I guess, but it kind of felt like it just, like, really, dropped off fast after the final fight. It was like, I won't get into spoilers, but, like, the final fight happens, and then it's like, oh, okay, we saved the day, and, like, that was it. I was like, there's not, like, a little bit of, like, breathing room. I was like watch everyone settle down some. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but it seems they've amended that. Be cool to be able to revisit the characters, and get extra content out of that. Now, here's another weird story. Beyond Good and Evil. First of all, I love that the Twitter username that the Beyond Good and Evil social media person has is for Beyond Good and Evil 2. Well, it looks like the cat's out of the bag. Happy 20th anniversary to Beyond Good and Evil. Cannot wait to show you more about the special edition. More news to come in early 2024. So apparently, an early development version of Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition was released to some Ubisoft Plus subscribers by mistake. How does this how in the world does this happen? Is there, like, literally a button that you can push to release the game and, like, someone spilled coffee on it or something? We celebrate the 20th anniversary of Beyond Good and Evil. Our commitment to delivering a game that meets the high expectations of our fans is unwavering. We're excited to announce the official launch set for early 2024. They're talking about the 20th anniversary of the original game, not Beyond Good and Evil 2 here. And we're dedicated to making an experience that truly honors the legacy of the original. Look, I'd be interested in playing Beyond Good and Evil, as I never have. And, if they're bringing it to modern platforms, that's cool. But, like, I don't get how this keeps, like, a lot of, like, stuff just accidentally comes out. Like, it's not even like a leak. It's just like, it's self-snitching. Like, what is going on with these companies? Like the what was it? Persona 3 Reload got posted up on the Persona or the Atlas Instagram page prior to like the Xbox showcase of us. And, like, obviously someone was fired there. Someone's probably going to be fired here. Like, I don't understand that. Also, why do you have to be secretive about, like, I don't know, what might be like a remaster of the game? So I guess for Beyond Good and Evil fans, that's something at least. Because Beyond Good and Evil 2 is never coming out. Never, ever, ever. That's another one. That's like that was announced. Yeah, that was announced before the KOTOR remake. And it's, because I remember I've lived in like 5 different places since this game was announced. At first, I was like fresh out of college when I first saw the trailer. I was like, that looks good. I'll play that in like a year. And then here we are 6 years later, and it never happened. Speaking of games that are never coming out, that'll take us into our last story for tonight. Is this? I believe this. Yeah, this was a couple days ago. Exclusive. Skull and Bones release date is February 2024. Following 6 delays, Insider Gaming has learned that Skull and Bones has finally got a release date of February 16th, 2024. I don't believe this has been confirmed yet officially, but follows an official announcement. The game has a release window set for Q4 2023-2024. So that it would have to fall into that time frame, I suppose. From the game will ship before the end of the fiscal year. Pre-orders alive. Oh God, why? Who in the world is pre-ordering this game? If you tell me if you are pre-ordering this game, you may need serious help, because there's probably a million games you can pre-order that will be better than this, and that will actually release. And there's a premium version. You know what I bet they're gonna do? I bet anything they're going to do the early access, like get in the weekend before, which no one should pay for, because like what is this game going to offer? It's been in development. Yes, originally really planned for a 2018 release, before being delayed no less than 6 times. At one point, the game was even being developed with a new vision in mind from the studio Ubisoft Singapore. From what I understand, Skull and Bones, it's an always online game. It's a pirate game, but you can't really get out of the ship. I think it was like sort of based on the skeleton of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which is a pretty good game, and could definitely be a good blueprint for a pirate game. But this is also I think it takes place in like the Indian Sea or something, which that's not frankly, you can say every ocean's the same, and maybe that's true, but I think for the first, the Indian Sea or whatever sea that this takes place in, save that for the sequel, or 2 sequels from the first one. Not the first one. I want to be in the Caribbean. I want to feel like Jack Sparrow. I want to be able to get out of the ship. And I want it to be a single player game. I don't want it to be an always online thing that I'm, having to pay microtransactions for in order to get anything cool. I mean, I guess it's finally going to come out. There was, probably 6 months ago, or maybe even longer, they did this gameplay deep dive with all the developers talking about how much they love the game. And it's, I just don't see this game being successful by any measure, really. For how long it's been in development for everything that they've shown so far, for everything we've heard. Apparently it's got some grant from the Singapore government in order to get this game here. I don't know. It's going to be interesting when this finally comes out. I will not be playing it, but I'll be looking forward to checking out reviews and stuff. So, all right, that is just about gonna wrap things up here. That was basically all the news from the past week or so. Not a ton of stuff, but a lot of little stuff.